remember 2006, there were these bomb blasts that were there. The bomb blast, here the other two blasts going. Tab tak bhi, I think it was in my head, it was something I didn't register.
Met Sadhguru?
Yes, I've met him.
Okay, how is he as a person? Like,
I don't know.
I've never met him. I've seen in many interviews, but what do you look at when you are investing? Why don't we speak about our failures often and the learnings that we get from that?
I worked with London Stock Exchange, I worked with AB Agri, I worked with Dun & Bradstreet and a lot of other.
Where many students or many kids are being pressurized that okay, there is a certain social pressure and there is a certain family pressure that comes along कि अच्छा ये पढ़ना ही है, then only you will get a job, फिर ही नौकरी मिलेगी, छोकरी मिलेगी, whatever, you know. आगे one red flag in a founder that turns you off as an investment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Level Up, a podcast brought to you by Lakhani Financial Services. On today's episode, we have the Executive Vice President and Head of Investments at Mumbai Angels Network, one of India's leading angel network companies. She is an angel investor and has invested in over 10 startups till date and has helped them scale up from where they were and from where they are today. Please welcome Shivangi Bubna. How are you doing today, Shivangi?
Super, Devansh. Good to be here.
Yes, I'm glad that we are doing our final episode with you.
Oh, okay.
After being behind the Mumbai Angels team, we are finally getting hold of you. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
As we just chatted a few minutes before, it's great to know that I used to stay in the same locality that you do.
It's a small world.
Just I'm having shifted very recently, but I've been born and brought up in Sea Road, Churchgate. So glad to know that we are from the same, location. How are you doing today, Shivangi? How are you doing?
No, I'm doing fine. It's been a great Saturday morning. One of those lazy ones where you get up, smell the coffee, then get going.
And then come for a podcast.
Absolutely.
Again, an interesting conversation.
Look forward to it.
Wonderful. Shivangi, probably we typically start off a little bit differently. As I just introduced yourself in a more formal manner, I would love that you introduce yourself in a very informal manner, what probably people don't know about you as a person, right? Because I feel that in the startup ecosystem, you are highly popular, you are a very well known personality in this ecosystem, having invested in so many startups, meeting founders, right? So people know about you from an investor or from the head of investments at Mumbai Angels point of view. Let us know something about you that we don't know.
Sure, and that's a tall order, but let me see what I can do about it. I think you've been very, very kind in your introduction. So, as you mentioned, I had a pretty regular childhood growing up in Marine Drive. I've tried not to become a sobo brat. I hope I have achieved that. But in my formative years were like all South Mumbai kids in a 1 kilometer radius. Your school is there, your college is there.
Which school were you in?
I was in Fort Convent, then I went to Xavier's. So everything in a 1 kilometer radius. It's only after that you realize that there's a world outside that is really, really exciting and you need to go out and explore. I think I have always followed the unconventional path, somehow following norms in the sense कि ये करना चाहिए, फिर ये करना चाहिए. It's not something that was in my DNA. Though I grew up in a very typical Marwari household, the expectations were aligned. But I think my parents have been very, very progressive in their thought.
Okay.
I think the day I entered college, they said, "Beta, ये सब छोड़ दे, तेको जो करना है तू वो कर." Now to a 17, 18-year-old, that is freedom. It was like, अच्छा ठीक है. तो अब I had done science for 2 years. तब लगता था कि अब 11, 12 कि मुझे डॉक्टर बनना है.
Oh, okay.
So I actually got admission into one of the leading medical colleges in the city. But फिर realize हुआ यार ये तो बहुत पढ़ना पड़ेगा, बहुत सालों के लिए पढ़ना पड़ेगा. Let me just maybe do something different. So then I took up a graduate degree in math. So I thought that the day I had to prove zero is actually zero. I realized कि अब ये हो गया. अब इससे ज़्यादा मुझे pure math नहीं करना life में. So I thought, before I decide what I want to study, I will work a bit. Just to get an experience of what happens when you actually get to work. So, I mean, very early on, I think my folks had enrolled me into NIIT because they thought, I mean, I belong to the generation where they thought बच्चों को computer आना चाहिए. You actually had to send a kid to a class to actually learn.
That time I think it was coming up. This is what year you are talking about?
So I'm talking about I graduated in the year 2000. Okay. So I mean I belong to that generation. Yeah. So it was something a skill that you had to teach yourself.
Yeah.
It is not
I
something
think it was
that
coming up that time. There were some academies also, some
Absolutely.
small classes and stuff like that. I think computer.
My parents being parents, they put me in NIIT. They said वो जाके वहाँ पे ना ये GNIT course है. नहीं, I used to go to Nariman Point to their flagship center.
Yeah, Nariman. And then they had opened one at A Road.
हाँ, but मेरा तब तक हो गया था.
सत्कार. This I'm talking, yeah, Satkar. हाँ. This one I was talking when I was.
Absolutely, तब तक मेरा हो गया था.
7, 8 or 9, 10 something, yeah.
So I actually did a full-fledged programming course then. I think that kind of set the groundwork, I think, for having an analytical bent of mind.
Okay.
So though according to whatever standards they had at that time, I was a great programmer, but I realized that the work experience that I want is not really as a programmer. I didn't think that was really, really exciting. So then, I mean, at that time, they were offering crazy internships. So I actually interned at Citibank. I had a very good time because I worked with the product team there.
Okay.
So after that, I thought कि अब क्या करना है. Then again, it was that, let's get one more year of education, go overseas. I thought that is like the route. So I enrolled for my masters in economics. क्योंकि वो MSc math तो नहीं करना था. That was very clear. I took up financial economics and econometrics, which I thought was kind of like maths, a lot of finance, and somewhere in between you actually pick up some real skills to get going. But I really enjoyed the course and I started questioning myself, do I really want to leave this? The profs are good, everything is great. Just because it's not a foreign degree, does it really? I mean, that's the only difference that I thought. And I also managed to land a stint at Monitor Group during that interview.
At what?
Monitor Group, which is the strategy consulting firm. Now it's merged with Deloitte and it's Deloitte Monitor. So I think I was having a very, very good time in life. So I really didn't want to drag myself out of the country because it's a lot of effort again.
And you were learning good out there.
I was learning good. I had great friends. I was having a great time. So ऐसा कुछ लगा नहीं कि करना चाहिए. And then after I finished that, when I was just about thinking what next, I think by then my parents were like, कुछ तो कर ले, कुछ काम कर ले, job कर ले. And I just signed up. That time I think Naukri.com was very popular. So I just uploaded my profile. At the same time, I had started my डॉक्टरेट का एप्लीकेशंस कि चलो अब मास्टर्स कर लिया, अब चाहते हैं कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा.
Abroad to study.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and next day I get a mail which says Chicago-based derivative trading company is hiring for traders. I was very suspicious because at that time, imagine year 2004, ऐसा कोई mail आएगा, you will be like ये तो गड़बड़ है. Because you can't even imagine that such a rule exists in India and it's simply going to show up in your inbox. Even if it did exist, I guess one has to apply, be well connected.
That time there was no algorithms and stuff like that which catch you today instantly. But that time coming when you're thinking about going abroad and automatically, of course it would look suspicious.
Yeah, so I think it was simply when my mother said, nobody's telling you to take the job. कम से कम जाके तो आ. See what it's about. If you think that it's sounding very interesting, you're not sure what it's about, so go find out, go for one round of interview and come back. I think that actually set the stage for my career in finance. because I worked as a derivatives trader across US and European exchanges for about 2.5 years.
You were put up there. Or you
I
were put up
put up in Bombay, so
Acha,
based
yeah.
in Bombay.
Okay.
I lived there for about a month or so, but yeah, that's
But the work was from Mumbai itself.
from Mumbai. It was a completely different time because if people asked you what are you doing, किसी को समझ में नहीं आता था. Then they would say forex was I think the maximum that people understood. Then the timings were a little whatever because I was maintaining UK timings.
Okay.
So I think I remember running into somebody in the lift and they're like, everything else I said yes to because I didn't have the energy to describe what I'm doing. I said, वो समझ में नहीं आएगा. Like after a lot of difficulty, I've kind of explained to my parents, बाकी भाड़ में जाओ. I can't take a shot at explaining. I think I stopped at when someone said, अच्छा तो call center में काम करिए. I said, no. You can't downgrade a prop desk to a call center. I think because at that time, BPO sector
BPO were very popular.
very popular. So
Yeah, and there was on night jobs where people used to smoke and
whatever,
drink
it was
chai
all
and-
of that.
I've seen people do that.
So it was like, chalo abhi to. I said, no. That is not what is happening. I think I prefer the forex wala understanding that you have. Yeah, so I mean, I did that. I think I took a break to do volunteer work for a while, which was full time. I worked with Isha Foundation as a full time volunteer. Then I decided कि चलो अब वापस करते हैं. Good. Now this is India. I mean, imagine this is India way back in 2010-11, where people didn't really look at career breaks in a positive light. I didn't see it as a career break because I thought I was working harder when I was volunteering than when I was at my full-time job. But that's the perception.
Yeah.
Ki, "Arey, you will have to start at the bottom and you work your way up and all." And I was like, no, I don't think that's right because the amount of exposure that gave me when I met and worked with people from all walks of life, I worked with different kinds of programs. I didn't think that that was the right way to go. So I thought कि ठीक है, मतलब अब क्या करें, खुद का ही कुछ कर लेते हैं. I believe that I have the skill sets. You don't.
And Marwadi family.
हाँ, and I was like, ठीक है, I mean, I believe I have the skills. You don't think I have the skills. So what do we do? Like, there's a disconnect here. I will not start at the bottom again. वो करके हो गया.
10 years are done.
10 years are done. So I started my own research consulting business. I did that for about 6-7 years. I worked with the best of clients. I worked with London Stock Exchange. I worked with AB Agri. I worked with Dun & Bradstreet and a lot of other smaller people. So I did like a bunch of projects which range from pure play research consulting, business consulting to strategic consulting. So I think that actually set the ground for what was coming next.
Okay.
I thought that at one point, I think LSE was my last client. So at that point I thought, I said, इससे ज़्यादा बड़ा क्या होगा? Either I kind of set it up then as a company and hire people because so expanded, or then is it time to actually explore what the formal workforce may have for me at this point in time?
Okay.
And after like speaking to some people, I figured that corporate investor relations, as in working with listed companies, is something that I have the right skill set for. Simply because I understand finance, I understand business models,
And
all of that.
And to meet people and stuff.
I think I'm able to explain a business, and so I wrote to a couple of leading IR firms. So that is history. I worked with 2 of them. I worked with companies which were SME listed, like that, say 100-150 crore market cap, to let's say doing some amount of work for large listed pharma companies, which were like 25,000-30,000 crore market cap. So I kind of covered that entire range. And then it was more like, what is it that I can do that is going to be able to give me that joy of working? Sense of satisfaction. Because here, working as an IR professional, it was great, but somehow there was something missing because I was not able to build anything or participate in the building. It was more about communicating something that somebody has already built out.
Got it, yeah.
So that's when I reached out to Mumbai Angels, and I think after about 2-3 months of discussion, I joined them in Jan 2020, and since then, I think the rest is history. I'm here.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll come to your, this education which you mentioned versus the work kind of a thing. I want to get more into that. But before that, also, how are you as a person, like growing up? What has been your childhood like? Who were there in your family? What were your hobbies? What do you like to do, etc. Tell me something about yourself on those lines.
I think I belong to the generation where we just simply grew up and had fun.
Without phones, without
phones, without laptops, television for the longest time, Doordarshan hota tha till like cable TV came, which in my life came very late. Like I think I must have been in the 9th or 10th standard when it actually took on. But I had a very typical, perfect childhood. I went to school. I was school, घर से आके बैग रखो, नीचे जाओ खेलने till somebody drags you upstairs and says अब घर चलना पड़ेगा. So I think I've enjoyed that phase in life where you had this like set of friends who come what may were playing downstairs and you just had to join.
Are you still friends with those people?
I think they are my friends, but life has moved on. We're at a stage where people are in different countries, but yes, we stayed in touch. There was a club opposite, so going for a swim, Garware, which most people didn't have access to, I had access to. So that used to be the highlight. In terms of hobbies, I used to read a lot. I think as a child, I enjoyed reading a lot of fiction.
Do you still read?
I still read a lot but I read a lot of fiction. I don't generally like non-fiction books.
Okay. What are you reading right now?
So right now, very, very interesting. I am currently taking a break and not reading anything. I think this work has just been too much. Now that you brought it up, maybe I should start making time for it. But I think in the last 4 or 5 months, some stuff has been happening and I haven't been really reading.
But which has been your favorite kind of a book?
It's very hard to define. What I like to do is I like to go to a bookstore or say if I'm at an airport.
You are in that category of people because there are 2 categories of people.
I'm in the category the book has to call out to. I'm not an online. I am one of those.
So I am that online one thing. I don't like to roam in a bookstore and all that. I think we had next to KC College and HR College. What was that like?
Oxford, no.
Oxford, I think.
Yeah, Oxford. That's a bookstore. Yeah.
Yeah, the bookstore. I think. I'd gone there once with a couple of friends during college, and I'm like, "Yahan nahi aana wapas." And now I've started picking up the habit of reading, but I like to search online. If I find some references, let's say on Twitter or on LinkedIn, someone has read something or someone has recommended, I'll read about it on Amazon or online or something and just straight order it if I want to read it. I cannot go in a bookstore. So I think now there are 2 categories with this generation. One is that जो bookstore में जाके they like to take the feel, they read a couple of pages if they like and stuff like that, right? And they see the categories properly. And then one is that there is online. आपको जो पसंद आया something order कर लो.
Online, I do that, but that's more for flights and things like that. Then I will download a couple of books and keep. But in general, in terms of what do I like to read, because I tend to pick up unknown authors, unrated books. So I will typically go to a bookstore, look around, see what looks interesting to me, and then pick it up and read.
Got it.
So that's the kind of person I am.
Okay,
I like that little bit of randomness in life.
Randomness, okay. Okay, go ahead. Then from reading, and what else?
Reading, I think, since it was in that sense a very straitjacketed childhood. We had all these classes in school itself. We had gymnastics, we had this, we had that. I think it was more a strategy to keep us out of the house. We were enrolled in everything.
Yeah.
I think we had been fortunate, I think, my sister and I, that our grades were good. We never really needed tuition.
Good at studies?
We got the grades. So, ऐसा था कि we had a lot of time. See, what happened with children in that time was that a lot of time went in these one-on-one private tuitions, class में जाओ, इधर जाओ, उधर.
हम लोग का वैसा ही होता था. At least from mine was at least from 8th standard or something, classes were started. I think the 8th I was good, okay, but then classes were put across because I think that was becoming the trend. Every parent was doing it for their child, and when you talk in the PTA meeting or something, तो मम्मी को भी लगता है ना that okay, हाँ, they are doing this thing, okay, which sir is coming, which ma'am is there, whatever, which class
Whatever,
is there.
absolutely.
So then you tend to put him also.
Yeah, this FOMO.
And that FOMO happens.
Yeah, this FOMO hit me only in my 10th standard because I went very happily from like 9 to 10, no problem. Suddenly somebody asked कि कौन से class में आपने इसको enroll किया है. I think someone asked my mother and she was like कौन सा class, क्या class मतलब?
10th class में.
I was like नहीं 10th standard में तो करना पड़ता है.
हाँ.
Then she did some research and found out what is the best class to enroll my kid in, and then I had to go. So I spent that whole summer vacation between 9th and 10th going to classes and hating
वो
it.
सबका होता ही है.
वो सबका होता है.
9 to 10.
I was not mentally prepared for it. मैंने मतलब February में enroll किया था for a class to start in April when people actually enlist themselves 1 year before. एक साल पहले से वो identify
because
करके.
the bookings, some popular classes booking used to start
Exactly.
6-8 months before only.
So this particular class that I enrolled for basically had batch numbers basis your grades. So basically V1, V2 basically meant vacation batch 1 and 2 with the top graders. तो तब तक I think कुछ V13, 14 चल रहा था by the time my mother found out कि ऐसा कुछ करना है. So मेरी लाइफ में तो कुछ फ़र्क पड़ता नहीं था. I was like yeah whatever जो भी है. But my mother went there and she's like आपने इसके मार्क्स दिखे हैं. How can you put her in V14? तब तक मम्मी ने पूरा रिसर्च कर लिया था. I think so then there was a compromise and somewhere I think they accommodated me in some V7, V8 with what they call the average performers.
There's an ego hurt for your mother.
For my mother. मैं तो वैसे भी
it was जिसमें भी डालो पढ़ के मेरे को तो
हाँ मतलब ठीक है अब जाना है पढ़ना है होमवर्क करते I think it was a crazy time. I think I met one of my dearest friends there. She and I had the same expression. We were like, almost, what are we doing here with these jokers? क्यों फंसा दिया हमें यहाँ पे? We had similar bag कर लिया था कि ये करना ही पड़ेगा. FOMO से कि ये करना ही पड़ेगा. Loads of homework. I don't know if you remember, but like every chapter, like सारे reference books से 200 sums, 300 sums, फिर उनके खुद के कुछ होते थे, and वो submit करवाते थे.
Yeah.
And they would ask if you have any questions. So my friend and I started doing every alternate sum. हम decide कर लेते थे कि तुम odd करो मैं even करूँ. तो जिस दिन पकड़े जाएंगे उस दिन देखेंगे उसके पहले इतना बैठ के ये repetitive काम हम नहीं करने वाले. I'd rather hang out at the bus stop and have chana kurma.
Yeah. I think that time, chana kurma.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, right? There weren't cafes, there wasn't anything.
Sev puri,
हाँ, मतलब वही है.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So, I think very interesting. I think what comes across from this conversation is that you were, again, as you mentioned, very, into stuffs which are not really planned and which are more random, probably from your end also, even from your mom's end also. But
I think it was I wouldn't call it random. I think it is a lot to do with freedom. Given the kind of family background that I come from, well, I wouldn't call it restrictive. I think my parents understood the need for freedom. So if I were to closely look at some of my peers while growing up, my cousins, etc., I think that's the one thing that they gave us. They gave us a boatload of freedom. Ki theek hai, we have your back, don't worry. You get on and do whatever you want. I think the freedom to make mistakes. That was to choose to make mistakes, which I think a lot of people don't get. And I think that has also helped me if I were to look back and try and put 2020 together. It's also, I think that has shaped my ability to be part of this ecosystem where I'm able to step back and look at things the way they are. Be able to analyze, put aside whatever biases I may have and look at things for what they are. I think this, whatever 20-year experience before I actually got to early stage is probably what is shaping my thought process even now. So one is the freedom to think, one is the ability to take calls without expecting, you know, somebody else to actually in the sense, you
Not
know,
support, but yeah.
yeah, like, you know,
be dependent
hold
on
your shit,
someone
yeah,
else's.
that kind of thing, to be dependent on somebody else's judgment. Because I remember there were a couple of instances when I would go back to my parents and ask, kya karna hai? They would flip the question, say, tumko kya karna hai?
Got it. What you mentioned about mistakes right now, right? So, what were some mistakes that you made, maybe in your growing up years and your teenage years, where you said that, you know, your parents were progressive, they allowed you to make a mistake, right?
I think the mistake is, imagine you are sitting in 1997, आपका बच्चा आपके आके बोल रहा है कि मुझे मेडिकल नहीं करना है, मुझे इंजीनियरिंग भी नहीं करना है, going to standards, sign up for a random BSc degree, which is usually what people do when they don't qualify for anything else. So, I mean, I've done plenty of things like that. I've put them through a lot of hell.
Any other, like, so studying BSc or something, I would say that is more like a choice. It would not be a mistake. You know, and in hindsight, all those mistakes you would have learned something, and that's why you were here.
So
But any particular mistake that you recollect, which was genuinely at that point in time, ke you thought ke हाँ ये मैंने गलत कर दिया, and I, you know, put my parents into some kind of a trouble. But yeah, they've got your back, etc. That is there. But there was
I think I fell for this con in 12th standard में ना science के लिए private tuitions हुआ करते थे, very unnecessarily expensive.
Okay.
Like for each subject at that point, you know, these tutors would charge some 15-20K. I don't know why, like, I think till I hadn't gone to college, I didn't feel the need for it. So I hadn't signed up for it. I didn't even know it existed because I wasn't part of the tuition culture. So for somebody to actually come and tell me, and then suddenly I started doubting कि मैं तो ये खुद से तो कर नहीं पाऊँगी. I had signed up for like the equivalent of vacation batches. So ऐसा नहीं कि I didn't have help. The college was great. There was enough help. But I just thought कि नहीं मतलब लेना चाहिए that FOMO the only way I'm going to make it. I think I set them back by a large amount of money, and it's not that. The point is that for about two subjects, I didn't land up going for the classes because I hated it so much.
Oh.
तो उनके तो पूरे पैसे चिपक गए. I think that time it was like a little bit mafia-ish where these guys were like, we don't care, पैसे तो तुमको देने पड़ेंगे.
Oh, okay.
So I think that was something. It was almost like, and at that time it बहुत सारे पैसे हुआ करते थे.
Yeah, 20K was a huge amount, I think.
And per subject. So
per subject. So maybe 40K, 40 to 50K around.
Whatever around.
Yeah, that is something which was I think today also it's very not a small amount.
Exactly, and that time it was a lot of money.
A lot of money, I think. Yeah, I agree. Coming to your this education part, right? I think, see, in what at least I'm aware, and back then if I talk 25 years back now, right? I think education was probably, you know, not given that much importance, right? In a normal family, 25 years back I'm talking about. You coming with a lot of experience, right? Today, as you said, like, was education given a lot of importance in your family, or it was more important to go out there and work and get experience? What was more important?
It started
because,
with
as
education.
You said that, you know, immediately, I think after graduation, after 12th, you started working.
No, after I graduated.
After graduated in 2000, sorry. So you you took an internship and you started working. Probably did not go for higher studies or abroad, as you mentioned, or whatever, right? So what was given more importance at that point?
So I think it was education, undoubtedly, because that was a non-negotiable. It was like, बाकी तुमको जो करना है करो, पढ़ना तो पड़ेगा. That was not an option, because I think they were progressive enough to see that if you want to build any kind of future for yourself independently, then you will need to be educated. It doesn't matter what you're educated in, the field is of your choice, but you need to know things. So I think that was a must-have. I think in my dad's side of the family, I'm the first postgraduate.
Achha.
So that's
Okay.
I think most of my cousins probably graduated and married. It didn't matter male or female. That was a standard, like
That was a standard
that was a
protocol, yeah,
standard
back then. Yeah.
protocol back then. For somebody to actually say कि नहीं मुझे ये सब कुछ नहीं करना है. For now, I first want to like see what life is all about. And to be, it wasn't even allowed. It's like nobody asked. Not that they didn't care. It was not questioned in the sense कि why are you doing this? Shouldn't you be doing that? It was more like अच्छा ये करना है. Okay, let's figure out how to do this. So it wasn't like there was no support. There was a lot of support, but it was in whatever direction we chose as kids.
Abhi, so that was back then in your life. What do you think is happening today with kids similar to what age you were back then? Is there a difference that you see in terms of parents giving freedom or giving ultra freedom or giving no freedom? Or is there too much pressure on you have to study this, or you have to go abroad for higher studies, or you have to do this course or whatever, like, you know? Is there something that is changing today in education or in parents and in students?
See, one is that change is inevitable. You have to move on with the times. And most people as parents would also want to do that, right? Even my parents were keeping up with those times. So I think, I don't know whether change is never a bad thing. So you can't really compare two different eras and say कि तब तो ऐसे था, now it is more pressure. Definitely the world is more competitive. You need to be more out there. So I don't think there's anything wrong in kind of prepping your kid for it.
Okay.
But see, the kid is too young, yeah, to maybe till a certain age to make life choices. Now, in the name of freedom, if you decide that you will not nudge them in the right direction, then it's of no use, right? By then it might be too late. आपने बच्चे को बचपन में नहीं बोला कि तुम पढ़ो, बाद में जाके उसको realize होता है कि यार पढ़ लेना चाहिए था. So then what is the point?
But I think from where I'm coming is also where we read a lot about, you know, and this I'm not just talking about South Mumbai or something.
No,
or,
no,
you know,
generally.
in general, what is happening in India, right? Where many students or many kids are being pressurized that, okay, there is a certain social pressure and there is a certain family pressure that comes along कि अच्छा ये पढ़ना ही है, then only you will get a job, फिर ही नौकरी मिलेगी, छोकरी मिलेगी, or whatever, you know, आगे life बढ़ेगी, basically you will get something. And if he wants to do something else that can be probably cut off from his wants or as a career, right? When he wants to start a startup or he wants to do something, then gets cut off. But you have to get to a certain level. You have to go and get a job. You have to do this for the family, etc. So don't you think that is increasing quite a bit than what it was earlier?
Yes, it is definitely increased, but then the competition is more. Life in general is much harder and a little more complex. Today, as a small child, you are exposed to so much information, which for somebody like me, I would have had to go to a library, open an encyclopedia, make notes, go to a library to read old newspapers and try and cull together information. Now that's, if times have moved on, if information by itself is available on fingertips, then isn't it better to teach a child to channelize it correctly and use it correctly? I think till a point where as an individual you are capable enough of making your own choices, of deciding what path in life you want to take. And irrespective of what path in life you want to take, see, today somebody might want to be a performer, somebody may want to be an actor, somebody might want to get into the creative arts, do something different. But yet there are certain life skills which are non-negotiable. Like you will need it irrespective of what you do. I think the very, very basic is how to navigate through life, through complicated situations. वो आप कुछ भी कर रहे हो लाइफ में उतना तो आपको स्किल आना पड़ेगा. It doesn't matter whether you can solve complex quadratic equations or not. That skill may not be required. It may not be relevant for most of the population. But just the fact that you've had to deal with that shit in life, you might be a little more equipped to deal with other shit also.
Got it.
So,
but ये experience से ही आता है. This
ये
cannot be
experience
taught
से ही
or
आता है. It
something.
can't be taught. So how does one actually create formal structures to provide a child this experience? So hence I guess our entire education system has taken that shift to probably make it a little more experiential for the child. The courses are better, the exposure is better in general to what a kid is learning. And yes, you have to deal with complex situations because life is complicated. Today when you step out into the real world, let's say post your 10th, 12th, you want to go outside and study, you need to be able to deal with moving into a foreign country, finding your feet. I'm not talking about figuring out how will you fund yourself and all. I'm not getting into all of that, but simply you need to be able to plan your breakfast, lunch, dinner. आप घर पे रहते हो, तो your meals are planned for you, your laundry is planned for you. It's kind of life is planned for you, but then suddenly you are on your own and you have to have the necessary skill to be able to plan that for yourself. Whether you choose to do it or not, that's okay. I'm not commenting on that part of it. But पता तो होना चाहिए.
Exposure is important. Talking about exposure, since you brought this up, probably going abroad for studies or something like that. Yesterday I was at this event called Hult organization, Hult Prize. It's a global forum and a global event where they invite startups, students basically who are working on ideas on startups which are fitting into the SDE goals, the Sustainable Development Environmental Goals, right? And wonderful event. These startups, these students had come from various countries: Nepal, Nigeria, Mexico, USA, Australia, Indians. Talking to these students, they were so very well equipped and they were so very well structured in their head, that they knew how to deal with a foreign country coming first time to India, and how to navigate around, how to talk to people. I was talking to Australian students, Australian startup founders, students who had come, and they're like, we landed and it was, we were finding it difficult initially because we landed at 3 a.m. So just for the first 2-3 hours when there was no one, we found it difficult. But as we started moving around more, as the day started and we started meeting people, etc., they were so warm, humble. We found our way. We found our way how to come to the hotel, how to come to this building. We also had pani puri.
That was risky.
So they love taking those risks. They want to get that exposure. So there was another girl from Portugal who was hosting, who was in the hosting team basically. And I was asking her that, don't you have a problem if you're going to eat so much of spices, masala, Indian food, paneer and papad and stuff like that, or whatever vegetarian also they would be having. I'm like, no, I love this. I don't mind having, I don't know what is going to happen, but I'm just going to go all out and eat because I'm liking the taste. So I don't mind what happens the next day or later on or something, but I'm going to love it. So, they are taking a lot of risk. Someone like me, I was very much risk averse in all these kind of things. I'm like, I don't want to, I like my comfort food, Mumbai mein, at home, etc. I think now, as you said, right, I think times are changing. People are wanting to take that new exposure or getting that new exposure, and they are getting that experience out of meeting new people, out of going to different countries, experiencing different cultures and diversity. I think that's very important for today's generation. I think that's pretty good. So yeah, I think you make a valid point in that sense. So let's talk about Isha Foundation, right, Shivangi? So you were there for I think 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And just first and foremost, tell us what is Isha Foundation. I know it's very popular. It does not need any introduction, but just in case if people don't know, please tell us what is Isha Foundation and what was your role out there and why did you choose it?
Okay, very, very loaded question. Let me see how I can answer this. So Isha Foundation is started by Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev. I think everybody kind of knows about his work. Now, why Isha? That's again, I think that is the interesting question. So, very dear friend of mine actually went to the center in Coimbatore. He did a program, and he came back raving all about it. Almost like the everybody must do it. This is great.
Okay.
I think that time I was at my trading desk and working for the prop desk. And in my head, I'm like, and I remember telling him also, I said, see, my life is really good. I don't have any issues. I'm not interested in this Baba business. Matlab, great that it worked. It worked for you. That's very good. But thanks. Then I think he said, ki, theek hai, introductory talk hai, it's free, this, that. I think that time it was a Times of India building only. I said, theek hai, matlab, if you're like so insistent, I'll come for the talk. Not enrolled for the program. He said, theek hai, koi baat nahi, you just come and hear them out once. I said, okay. Utna to karna padta hai. And I think what floored me was the simple logic of what the teacher was talking about. So I think this was my first exposure to unfiltered logic.
Not spirituality yet.
Yet,
It was unfiltered
logic. And I said, okay, this is great. Maybe I should give it a shot. Like, if this is what it's about, it seems great. And I enrolled for the class. This was a morning 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. batch because then I had to get to work. Somehow that night I couldn't sleep. And I didn't sleep too well, I remember. So then I got up at 5. And I was like, chal, my friend is also going to be volunteering. Let me, since I'm awake only, and jaake. In my head, it was all like, this is going to be very, very disorganized. Everybody, it's, like 5:30 in the morning, people are going to be running around trying to put things together. Because in the evening, I was there till 9 o'clock, so setup ekdam alag tha. I was like, ये सब chairs हटाएंगे, ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे, कितना मतलब, how much work is going to be there. I reached at 5:30. The venue was set up. There was music playing. 2 volunteers were sitting on the side in absolute silence. And I was like, ye kya hai? Because I went expecting chaos, thinking that I am going to help. And it was like, wow. Can this kind of structure exist? And so simply, it was not, that there were some 20 helpers, ye chair hata raha hai, wo kar raha hai, kuch nahi. Just 2 people sitting, the teacher sitting, everybody just sitting there and quietly meditating and doing whatever the hell they were doing. One can assume they were sitting quietly and meditating, but pata nahi, ab jo bhi hai.
Of course.
And I think that whole 1 week program experience was wonderful for me. And I think what also kind of triggered this, I never intended to be a volunteer. I never intended to take a break from like paid professional work and move to unpaid work. I never thought that, I'm going to be doing something great and change the world. I mean, I want to do great things, but not in this direction. I had never thought about it.
Not at that stage.
Not at that stage in my life. In my career, I was very happy where I was. It was never that dissatisfaction. I think, remember 2006, there were these bomb blasts that were there in the city, in the trains. Mumbai trains. I was traveling, my office was at BKC. I was traveling from Bandra station to Churchgate station. Ghar aa rahi thi main wapas.
Okay.
Now, before that, in my life, before that day, I had never run to catch a train. My funda was like, एक नहीं तो दूसरी train हर 3 मिनट में आती है. I am not running, I don't want. But I used to like hanging near the door and simply enjoying the air. I have done that. I am guilty of that. While I don't hang out, but I will stand on the side. And that day, I don't know what happened. वो कान में वो, I don't remember which FM station was. वो पूरा लगा था, खाली train था. This is a fast train from Bandra to in the opposite direction, absolutely empty, doesn't stop anywhere. Literally flies, it gets you from like Bandra to Churchgate. No, this is where it doesn't stop between Bombay Central and Churchgate also. So then it gets 17 and a half to 18 minutes. That time I had it down to a science ki ye train pakdo, itne baje pahunch. I just thought कि चलो अंदर बैठते हैं, and for some reason I didn't even sit by the window. I sat बीच में, मतलब जहाँ से वो एंटर करके वो कंपार्टमेंट में बैठते हैं ना, the edge of the seat. I sat there. I don't know what I was, पता नहीं क्या था. When the first blast went off in the parallel train, माहिम स्टेशन का जो blast था, ये ट्रेन इधर से आ रही थी और ये, if that day I was standing at the door, I don't know what would have happened. Because
so it was just in the
it is
train
parallel.
which was going.
ये full speed में जा रही थी, क्रॉसिंग माहिम, यहाँ पे वो ट्रेन रुकी, जो भी हुआ. If I was standing at the door, I don't know, maybe I would have missed it, maybe I wouldn't have, पता नहीं क्या होता. Like, and because I had music full blast in my ears, it kind of cut down the impact, sound impact also. And this lady sitting in opposite me is going, bomb blast, and वो सुन नहीं रहा है कि क्या बोल रही है. एक तो ट्रेन में, हाँ, ये आंटियाँ मतलब काफ़ी कुछ बोलती है, तो one just has to, then I was like, हाँ, so bomb blast, and I was like, okay. And this train, या वो ड्राइवर को मानना पड़ेगा, it could have derailed because the speed at which it was going and the impact of the blast, somewhere between Mahim and Matunga, it's managed to stop finally. Then it was like train से निकल के चलो. अब my life, I have never gotten off the train except for the platform. कभी नहीं उतरी हूँ मैं. Like not even before कि चलो यहाँ साइड से.
Your train stopped in between.
वो जो माही माटुंगा के बीच में वो बड़े सारे ट्रैक्स है ना, वहाँ पे. And I didn't know where to go because this side they were not letting you go towards Mahim. First I thought मैं माहिम चल के माहिम स्टेशन जाती हूँ और वहाँ से टैक्सी पकड़ के घर चले जाऊँगी. Till then in my head I was very oblivious कि ठीक है, कुछ हुआ होगा, सिलेंडर ब्लास्ट, ये ब्लास्ट, क्या पता, मतलब till you don't see it, you don't realize the magnitude
then
of it.
Then you understand the bomb blast, the terrorist.
वो बहुत बाद में हुआ है मुझे. And then there was two ladies in the train. One guy came वहाँ पे, two ladies in my compartment from the Basti on the side, the slum on the side, and I said, we'll drop you till outside. So I went, and you can't walk through those gullies because only one person can walk. So there were four of us walking in a line, एक हाथ पकड़ के एक दूसरे का. I didn't know where I was going. I wasn't sure whether we are actually going to get off onto the other side. मुझे कुछ पता नहीं था. I walked through a slum for the first time. Like to this extent, like पूरा अंदर से बाहर. तब भी मुझे ये था कि ठीक है, this is like Mahim station का other side. I'll just take a cab to Dadar. What I was thinking, I don't know. मैं वहाँ से ट्रेन पकड़ के मैं चले जाऊँगी. It's okay. I got into a cab. There was one other lady who needed to go to Dadar. वो थी, तो वो भी साथ में कैब में आ गई. And we started going. Then we realized, then we could hear the other two blasts going. तब तक भी, I think it in my head it was something I didn't register. Then the cab guy said माटुंगा पे कि मैडम इधर भी कुछ लग रहा है कि आप ऐसे, ठीक है आप ऐसा करो, साइंस से आप चर्च गेट ले लो. Like I don't want to get into this now. Outside Sion Hospital, I saw not even an ambulance, a police van laden with injured and bodies. That is when the magnitude of what has happened struck me. I think within that, I think about 3-4 months, I kind of quit my job, not because again I wanted to volunteer or anything, but I felt that maybe I should take a break. ये कुछ ज़्यादा हो गया है, like to just keep working post this also. So in about I think 2008, I was like, thoda, let's just take a break. I mean, it went on for a while, I couldn't. And then I was doing nothing, so then again some friends.
That those images were hitting you, I mean, they were disturbing you.
It was very, very disturbing, and just the fact that I could have been there, it is not that something that I could have prevented. It was just pure chance कि उस दिन एक तो मैं ट्रेन भाग के पकड़ी मैंने, ऊपर से I was not hanging outside the door. Then this guy, motorman, managed to apply the brake.
अगर वो ट्रेन भाग के नहीं पकड़ी होती, दूसरी कोई नॉर्मल,
पता नहीं से, I don't know. Like that's what I cannot say for sure कि क्या हुआ होता. Maybe it would have been better कि शायद ये कुछ होता ही नहीं. Again, I'm not saying that,
More
that
possibilities.
lots of possibilities are there. I was not able to wrap my head around that. Like I just needed a break to think about it a little instead of trying to hide from it कि कुछ नहीं हुआ है. Because मुझे physically तो कुछ नहीं हुआ था. I was absolutely fine. There was nothing. So I think I just decided to take a break, and that's when I was still doing the Isha yoga practices, the meditation and kriyas and everything. That's a different thing. I mean, I still do them. I find it, it is a cornerstone in my life of sorts. And I think, like all organizations, if they figure that somebody has time, they will call you. Very subtly, why don't you do this? Why don't you try this? Can you do something? I said, ठीक है, अब घर पे ही बैठे हैं, anyway.
So you were in Coimbatore?
No, I was mostly based out of Bombay. I traveled to Coimbatore a lot.
Okay. So what was your role? In volunteering, you have to be at the Coimbatore. That
Not really. I
place?
mean, there are different ways, right? I volunteered to set up programs in the city, in Bombay, fundraise. I would travel to the Isha Yoga Center in Coimbatore to volunteer for specific programs. काफी कुछ किया मैंने.
Okay. So it was a mix.
It was a mix of everything. So yeah, I mean that's
You
how
met
it happened.
Sadhguru?
Yes, I've met him.
Okay. How is he as a personality? Like,
I
what
don't
is
know.
it? I've never met. I've seen his many interviews, but
It's just wonderful being around him. Like it's at a very basic level. कुछ लोगों से मिलो तो अच्छा लगता है. Just to be around them, whether you speak to them directly or not. I think for me it was just that.
okay.
अच्छा लगा.
अभी अच्छा लग रहा है मेरे से बात.
बिल्कुल नहीं तो मैं इतनी बातें नहीं कर रही होती.
नहीं फिर भी आपको करना पड़ता. आप पॉडकास्ट पे रिकॉर्डिंग चल रही है. Okay, great. Tell me about your few experiences at Isha Foundation, maybe with Sadhguruji. What were your learnings from there? What did you pick up?
So my key
Which has
learning.
stayed with you till today, because this is like 12, 13 years back, or we're talking about when you joined there. So which has stayed with you today and which you try to apply in your day-to-day living?
Okay. So I
From
think
anyone, it could be a person out there, it could be a co-volunteer.
I will tell you, I learned from my own experience of volunteering. One is that there is nothing that one can't do. Now here I am not talking about something in terms of which require technical skills like building a rocket and also let's not go to that extreme. But as an individual, your potential is limitless. If you apply your mind to it, there is nothing that you cannot do.
Okay.
So that was one. And the second is whatever you do it 100%. There are no shortcuts to it. So you have to be completely there, completely available. There is no that,
Your heart, soul and your
everything.
brains.
In that moment you are there. You are just there and you are there 100%. And you learn to be a volunteer in life. So one is that, you volunteer and do something. Or you just simply carry that volunteering attitude to everything that you do in your life. Which is that you just simply do it. You want to do it, you just do it. There is no yes, no, whatever, maybe tomorrow about it. So it's that 100% involvement is something that has stayed with me through and through, irrespective of where I have been, what I have done. And I think that is what has enabled me to make these career transitions so smoothly. Where I have not seen it as a transition. For me, it has been a natural progression. So I'm pretty sure that, maybe 10 years later, if I will be doing something else. And I don't think it will have to be something that I would have to think of, ki, arey, ab kya karna hai, how will I think that how will I do this question?
It will come naturally, it will flow to you.
It will flow and I know I will be able to adapt to it. Today, let's say I'm part of the early stage ecosystem. I absolutely love it. I think out of all the things that I have done in my life, just working in this high energy space is something that has stayed with me for the longest. But let's say, who knows, I mean, tomorrow if I'm running a cafe, it's that same level of involvement, that same level of commitment. I think how do you maintain that in every activity that you do in your life? I think it's that and punctuality. So a time commitment is something that you have given to yourself. You have given your word that you are going to be somewhere at X time. Now, if you cannot keep your own word to yourself, then what sort of individual are you? I think some of these very, very basic things, there are lots of very, very beautiful things, but I think it makes sense to talk about basics, which might make a difference in somebody else's life also.
Yeah, and that is what this podcast is about, to probably teach or learn from one's experience, so that the audience can probably level up their knowledge and the way they are thinking, right? But this is really beautiful that you said, right? That you have to, in terms of punctuality and in terms of that how you try to look at things when you are approaching something. You have to approach it with your whole heart, soul, and head into it. You have to put your
Put yourself there. You can't maintain
or else don't do it.
arm's length principle distance and say ki chalo try karte. It doesn't work. It may work. I mean, who knows? It may work also. But if you're anyway there, you're anyway giving up significant part of your life to be there. You might as well do it 100%. We all have one life. So जो भी कर रहे हो वो अच्छे से ही करो.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah. Coming to what you are doing, right, and what you have been doing, giving your 100%. To talk about your journey as an angel investor. You've invested in probably 10 plus startups, right? Run us through your process as an individual, okay, not as a MA team member. As an individual, because I think you've been investing since quite a few years. It's not after you joined MA, I guess. I think it's been before.
So no, so startups I've invested only after joining MA.
After joining MA, individually.
Yeah, individually.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what is your individual process when you are looking at a startup? How do you, of course, you get a lot of leads and you get a lot of referrals to invest. So, the supply is never the problem. But then, what are your checks? What do you look at when you are investing?
So, I think for me, this very, very simple check is, do I think that this founder will deliver what they are talking to me about? Because very, very honestly, at a very basic level for such young companies, the founder is the cornerstone. Founders, the team basically. So can this team actually go out and build what they are committing? One is, do I believe it? And the second is, do I like what they are building? I think at a personal level, these are the two parameters that I look at. One should look at some of the other aspects in terms of the financials, the projections, etc. But then that every investor will do. So nobody is really going to say कि हाँ मतलब ये शक्ल अच्छी लग रही है तो मैं पैसे डाल देता हूँ.
And that is also very subjective.
It's subjective. It's very, very subjective.
How an investor perceives it. For someone, it would like even $1 billion would be less. For someone, that would be like, hey, what nonsense? How are you going to achieve that?
Of course.
So it could be different for different people.
It's very subjective. It's very individual. At an individual level, investing is also about your risk profile in terms of, do you want to take this amount of risk or not? Especially at the early stage, I think these are the 3 or 4. There are no short bets. There is no algorithm which can tell you कि हाँ ये unicorn बनेगा. अगर कोई ऐसा बोल रहा है तो I definitely want to meet this person.
And invest in him.
Invest in him.
In his platform.
हाँ, but I have not seen that. You will go wrong because simply there is no way of predicting whether, again, just to take a step back, a company's success is dependent on a lot of external forces as well, apart from the internal ingredients that they are putting into the mix. तो अब external forces की किसने guarantee ली है कि everything will fall into place exactly the way it should? So then what is the strategic bent of mind that this group of individuals has? Will they be able to adapt to the situation, navigate whatever path comes their way, which they have not predicted? I think that to a large extent should contribute to the success of an idea or a very, very young company.
But initially, how can you figure out?
No, so your bets can go wrong. That's what I'm saying. It is not that मैं ये बोल रही हूँ तो आई एम सम सूटसेयर और मेरे पास कोई क्रिस्टल बॉल है और मैं उसमें देख के बोल सकती हूँ कि हाँ ये इट्स अगेन अ प्रोबेबिलिटी गेम. आई थिंक वो हैविंग been a student of math for a very, very long time, it is a probability game, it's a probability of success. Some of them will be 0-1 games where you know that you are definitely taking a risk and actually taking a bet without, it's a 0 or 1 kind of probability. So it really depends and it's very, very individual. Your mindset at that point in time also matters. Today I might think differently about one company, today I might think differently about it 10 days later. So do I want to sleep on it and then decide ki?
Yeah, valid point. I'm a big cricket fan and, a Kolkata Knight Riders fan in IPL, right? So,
Nice.
yeah,
So you're a happy person.
I'm a very happy person today. And I'm a big fan of Gautam Gambhir as a player and as a leader. So in his interview, one of the interviews recently, he mentioned that when he is picking up his team, when he's picking up people like in the auction and stuff like that, right? What makes his job easier as a leader is that he likes to invest into resources or people which have similar characteristics as him, so that he does not have to really go out there to mold them or to literally coach them into being something or how to perform on the field. Like cricketing skills to unko pata hai because they're
That is a given, right? I mean, they wouldn't
yeah, mindset wise and little bit personality wise or little bit approach wise towards the game. So and what he meant is that who is willing to give it all on the field, who is willing to go all in, and if it is the hard way, you go the hard way. If it is to stand up for your team member, you have to stand up for your team member, right? So his personality is such in media. I don't know how much you follow
but I've heard it,
Gambhir India, but his personality or his perception is such that he's a very serious person. He does not smile much, or he will be very in your face, in interviews or on the field or something or whatever, right? So this was something. Do you also, when you are investing in a startup, do you try to look in a very softer aspect? I know it does not come out very clearly in 2-3 meetings or something, but do you also try to find that अच्छा ये कोई founder है जिसका somewhere that characteristic is something which I can blend with, or he can blend, or she can blend with my, so एक resonate करने में difficulty नहीं होगी. I can really resonate with this person. We are having some kind of similarities in our characteristics and the way we approach business or in the way we approach a certain situation. Do you try to do that?
According to me, I don't think that would work with either investment opportunities or with building a team.
Okay.
Today I have an investment team of 20 people. Okay. All of us come from diverse backgrounds, diverse mindsets. I think it is that diversity that actually runs the show. Imagine if everybody thought, in the investing context, imagine if all 30 of us thought the same way. So that means if one person's process fails, everybody is more or less likely to fail. So I think in this particular field, whether it is your team or whether it is the startups that you are picking, you have to appreciate the different thought processes that people bring. I would also encourage my peers and other VCs to look for diverse hiring practices. Putting the same type, a bunch of same type of people together may yield good results in certain circumstances, but from my limited experience of being in this space, I don't think that is the right way to go, and definitely not for investing either.
But do you think that is happening in VCs right now, that they don't look at diverse hiring practices or something?
I don't want to comment on it. I really don't know because I don't.
Not to say any specific names or something.
No, but even.
Do you think?
No, I think in fact.
In a generic manner, is it something which is happening today?
No, I think that's the beauty of this space today. If you look at any 4 or 5 funds, you will find that people who have set it up have completely different backstories. People they've hired as their key team members would have a tangential story to their own. Like even if it's two friends setting up a fund, they would have typically gone through different experiences in life and then come together and work together. So I think, in fact, of all the financial ecosystems that exist, because the early stage requires you to constantly think of out of the box and evolve your thought process for you to be able to be successful. I think this is a space where maximum people are hired for their ability to analyze, to deliver, and to be able to adapt to situations. And one would think that the same skill sets need to apply to the founders that we like to work with. So they need not, again, the adaptability comes in different forms, the analytical skills comes in different forms. Nahi to it would be so simple na, ek college kar lo ki all VCs have to study here. Without it, you have to do this only.
Standard template you have to follow and go ahead.
Certain industries require it, so I don't, I'm not against the templatization, but I would like to think that this is also, especially investing at the early stage, also has a layer of individual opinion, creativity, and it is an art at the end of the day. More than a science, it is an art. So it's a craft that you learn, you probably hone your craft by continuously talking to people, listening to people. Today आप ये 4 बुक पढ़ के आप कुछ नहीं सीख पाओगे इसमें. You will know the definitions, जो किसी को मतलब ही नहीं, कोई आपको पूछने वाला भी नहीं कि definition क्या है. So it's in that context it's different. It's an art and which has a science behind it, but it's more of an art. So again, investing is also an art at the early stage. So one has to keep it diverse. Is
I
my
think at
view.
any stage investment is an art, whether it's stock markets, whether it's
So I think more structured investments would have more rule based, a little bit more structure to it, and you are able to put things in baskets.
logical reasoning you can give yourself before investing.
Absolutely.
I think here, more than logic, as you said, the art part and just to
And the
go
art,
with your gut.
The art comes from logic anyway. So if you don't have a very
But
good
you have to
analytical
go with
bent
your
of
gut.
mind,
You don't have numbers to prove. You
here
don't
you would stick out your neck a lot more because you take an individual call, and irrespective of how the company does, you have to live with it for a very long time.
Coming to this point, okay, this is a very interesting point that you brought up. In our industry, what I have noticed is that, and this is a little generic, it's not specific to anyone. What I've noticed is that, people, blow their trumpets when there are winners, when there are some good success stories, startups that have gone and done Series B, Series C, and now become renowned companies and brands. तो वो कंपनी का बहुत बोलबाला होता है, राइट? बट जो कंपनीज गई है, which have gone, which have probably are not operational now, or which have been failures in our ecosystem of investors, whether angel networks, VCs, anyone, even investment bankers like us, we all are included in the same thing. We don't talk about that much. ऐसा क्यों होता है? मुझे आपसे जानना है, नॉन डिप्लोमेटिकली, एकदम ऑनेस्टली मुझे आपसे जानना है, ये क्यों होता है? इन योर एक्सपीरियंस, इन योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, व्हाई डू यू थिंक दिस हैपेंस? व्हाई डोंट वी स्पीक अबाउट आवर फेलियर्स ऑफन एंड द लर्निंग्स दैट वी गेट फ्रॉम दैट?
So I think people talk about their learnings, talking about specific companies and their failures. Today we're sitting in India and there's also a certain taboo attached to failure. So I think most of us, it's not about personal failure, but it's also that we want these founders to go out and build something wonderful again in the future. So we don't want to call them out as failures. I guess that's my personal call on it. And also look at it this way today in terms of, if you have 10 companies in your portfolio, about 5 or 6 of them are going to shut down, not give you even your capital back. So then, as a fund or as an investor, as a banker, you will have limited airtime available if one has to even look at the kind of exposure that you will have or the talking opportunities. So then you will want to kind of use that time to talk about your successes, because these are also the companies with the maximum potential at that point in time. And definitely being out there in the market and being out there in the news is going to help these companies. अब जो
And them too.
and them too, it generally helps everybody who's associated with that. Today if I start talking about somebody who didn't do very well, one is that it's not seen in great taste, and the second
Not
is
in a negative manner.
not a
I never, I never meant in a negative
no,
manner
but
talk about that
you
failure.
talk about your
But
experiences, right? You talk
yeah,
about your
about the
learning.
experience. Yeah.
You always, I mean, you evolve as an investor. Sometimes if you think that you didn't do enough diligence, then you kind of evolve your diligence process to build it up. If you didn't do enough founder F checks, then you know that from the next deal onwards, you need to do more F checks. If you invested in an over diluted cap table, then you know that ये नहीं करना चाहिए, or there are certain
So
situations.
ये सारे जो, as you said, these examples of pointers which could have led to you know, that company or your performance in that company not you know, coming on top. These topics are not really spoken about much. मतलब that I made this mistake as a VC, or I made this mistake as an investor. So that's my predominant question. You know.
I think this is spoken about. I think it's about reading between the lines. Now, I don't know why we don't go out and say, I made this mistake. But definitely, all of us do talk about our learnings in the sense that what all is it that we should do. We have evolved processes to adopt. That does come again from experience. So it's not that one fine day you realize कि अरे ये भी करना चाहिए था. Can happen sometimes, but mostly it is coming out of some experience. So one also needs to listen to what people are saying, why they are saying certain things they are saying. Like this initial discussion that we had, I think, maybe when we were speaking about using equity capital for working capital requirements, etc. These are some of the things that come out of experience. You will do it once, you'll do it twice, and you realize कि ऐसे deal में नहीं invest करना चाहिए. We should probably look at where the money is going a lot more carefully. Not that we don't look at it, but as individual investors, we should actually track that more closely कि वो कहाँ जा रहे हैं पैसे क्यों जा रहे हैं. So this is, I think it's an evolving process. I don't think it's an intentional thing to say that let's not talk about our mistakes. I think everybody has an anti-portfolio. We all talk about our anti-portfolios in terms of missed opportunities. So I think that, I mean, if you look at it in one view, that's also a wrong call, right? You thought that something is not going to be successful, but it's turned out to be like a superstar of sorts. So it happens. I don't think that, I mean, in my view, I don't think that that's the
Okay.
general
So
outlook.
let's talk about any of your, again, not to it could be without a name also, that's not a problem, but any of your personal portfolios, if you can talk about where it did not work out the way you wanted it to. Let's not call it a failure, but where you made that certain mistake, where you learned from it, and you know things did not work out properly in that company. You waited for certain period of time, but it did not pan out the way you wanted to. Let's talk about that.
So I think when I was very, very new to this space, from whatever limited understanding I had, I thought if a company is raising a second round of funding, तो अच्छी होगी उसने क्रैक कर लिया. मैंने ज़्यादा सोचा नहीं ऐसे. I participated in the follow-on rounds or bridge rounds of some companies, and maybe that in hindsight, maybe that was not a good call. I should have again thought about it a little more. कि अभी ब्रिज राउंड क्यों रेज कर रहे हैं, why are they not raising the next round of funding, why is it at the same valuation, etc. But ठीक है, that's a learning curve, right?
Like in my particular case, when I had invested in my first startup, again at the start of COVID, and you know that startup was you know, two people from Jharkhand, right? And I had met them. They had come to Mumbai to meet me, etc. And I happened to invest a certain amount in them, along with raising from some other investors also. And it was into hyperlocal delivery. तो कोविड के बाद hyperlocal delivery तो बहुत चल गया था, right? Because everything was online, you had to order and stuff like that. So I thought that this would be, you know, sort of a good start point for them, and COVID is a good blessing in disguise for them. One thing what we had done, and you know, where we were very confident, like when we were brainstorming, one strategy that we did was that right now they're present in just one city in Jharkhand, and they were just launching a new city, right? And we thought of expanding with the capital that we are going to put in, thought of expanding into multiple cities, like within the first 6 months only. जल्दी जल्दी स्केल अप करो. मेरे हिसाब से स्केल अप का डेफिनेशन था अलग अलग सिटी में जल्दी जल्दी जाओ. जो व्हाट आई हैड रेड और माय परसेप्शन अबाउट स्केल अप वाज व्हिच टर्न्ड आउट टू बी रॉन्ग फॉर मी, राइट? व्हिच आई थॉट, मतलब वो बाद में मुझे पता चला जब पैसे अभी वो कंपनी इज ऑलमोस्ट गॉन. देन आई रियलाइज्ड कि scale up just does not mean you move to different cities at पैसे आए तो आप बस एक एक सिटी लॉन्च करते जाओ. That is not scale up, right? Scale up could also mean or should also mean that you focus on 1-2 core cities where your founding team members are, really go deep inside that city, build a brand there, establish a community, establish the business there, become profitable in those cities, and then you invest in a new city or you start a new city. So this was my when I realized that the money is not going to come back now, it's gone. This was my first investment and the first learning experience which I gathered. You need to be very aware of the fact that ये ऐसे ही मतलब बिजनेस नहीं बनते, उसको टाइम लगता है. हर शहर में every place it's going to take that time. So I think that was my very key learning from my first investment, which was a failure. And that was something which is there, right? So coming to the next thing, that in terms of investments, which has been your success story, out and out success, which probably you have seen from start, you have probably mentored them, groomed them, and इसमें आप name ले सकते हो because again
I think I started investing only about less than 4 years ago. So some of the companies that I've invested in which are doing well are still growing. So maybe this is not the right point to actually name them and talk about
okay,
them.
let's not talk about success, maybe that would be a wrong word, but which you feel that they can become really very big. And don't tell me I feel all my 10 babies can become really big or something.
Which I don't, I mean.
But that one company which you feel that okay, this is something which this is really good. I genuinely want them to do really good, and you've really helped them, mentored them, or groom them.
I haven't really done investments independently out of the platform. My investments are those which are also part of the Mumbai Angels portfolio. So maybe I'll refrain and give you a sector flavor that might help you. So I have found, like, whatever calls I took in the green energy space or the renewable space over the last 4 years, those are doing pretty well. The companies have been scaling, raising next round of funding, doing well. And I like to think that that's a space that I was able to pick for myself very early.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so let's come to the little bit on the final leg of this conversation. All right. This is one question which I like to ask all my guests. All right. It's about money. So tell me, what was your first money lesson that you learned? From whom it was, and when was it?
You are asking a Marwari about money lessons. I think I learned the value of money from my parents. They gave us a very hard time when we were kids. We had to actually prove that we needed something before we got it. It wasn't that school में सबके पास है तो तुमको भी चाहिए तो मिल जाएगा. They never participated in that kind of
Even though you were
FOMO.
living at Marine Drive, it was not that easy.
It wasn't that easy.
It was not के भाई ठीक है पैसा लो.
हाँ नहीं था.
अच्छा.
The rationale कि स्कूल में क्लास में सबके पास है or my friends have it was never really, and without all the song and dance about you have to work very hard for this money etc. वो सब कुछ नहीं था. It was like, why do you need it? What is it that you're going to do from it? I think an example that I can give is I think I was in school when those fluorescent highlighters became very popular. अब वो क्लास में तो अलाउ करते नहीं थे because you couldn't really highlight your textbooks at that point in time. But everybody in my class had it, so I was like, अब तो बस मुझे भी चाहिए. I remember I had to write a one-page essay on ये मुझे क्यों चाहिए and how is it going to help me. I got it, but वो उतना वो मेहनत करवाया मुझसे.
So it taught you the importance of working hard to earn.
It was stopping
Even
and
a
asking why.
हाँ.
So it was not about you have to earn it. So it's not like they said कि अच्छा ये काम करो मेरा तब मिलेगा. None of that. It was
not that mindset.
Not that mindset. It was you need it, okay, very good, but why? वो होता था कि एक पेज का ऐसे तुम लिख के आ जाओ. उस पे questions नहीं पूछते थे.
Okay.
It was more like just the fact that you have probably I'm trying to think now कि इतना सोचा है उतना बहुत हो गया.
Does that kind of a mindset instilled in you from childhood frame your today's money decisions? Let's say you want to do shopping, you want to go out, you want to travel, go to, fine dine restaurants or relax, chill with your friends, whatever. So does it frame any of your money decisions, whether it's even investments, let's say?
It does to a very, very large extent. And it's not to say that, I will save my money and not do anything. I do all of this. But just that thought process that, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going out for lunch. Why do I want to go? Do I really like this place? Or to, even if you're just going because everybody else is going, at least that clarity comes, na, कि भाई तुमको तो कुछ ज़्यादा interest है नहीं. At least for yourself, you have figured कि maybe I'm just following the herd and not just. So just that, I think stopping, pausing for a minute and thinking that introspection is there.
No one will ask you today, but
no one
at
is
least
asking you today.
ask या self introspection एक आता है.
एक reality check है life में कि
ये फिजूल का खर्चा है कि ये मतलब ये नीड वाला खर्चा है या ये वांट वाला है. इट्स ओके बट इट इज नॉट अल्ट्रा फिजूल का वेस्ट ऑफ.
अल्ट्रा फिजूल का भी मैं करती हूँ, ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं करती हूँ, पर तब मुझे पता होता है कि आज बस मुझे मेरे क्रेडिट कार्ड को वर्कआउट कर देना है. बस आई डोंट केयर, आई नो आई डोंट नीड एनीथिंग कि बस आज करना है. आज मूड है. I think that comes with financial independence, that also the understanding that you are not taking somebody else's money.
Absolutely.
कि अगर आप उड़ा रहे हो तो आप खुद के पैसे उड़ा रहे हो, then you are not liable and you don't have to explain to someone कि ये क्यों कर रहे हो. But at least खुद को तो समझा पाते हो ना कि क्यों कर रहे हो.
तो खाली खुद के दिलासे के लिए खर्चे होने के बाद वो सब दिलासे.
But वो clarity comes, पता है कि आज ये बस It's like on the weekend, I don't know what got into me. I said, मैं किसी तो भी वेबसाइट पे थी, ठीक है, I will buy one dress. वो एक का कब 5 हो गया वो मुझे पता नहीं चला. Add to cart, वो कार्ट पे देख के हमने कि तो सब अच्छे हैं यार. Why should I delete it?
The why comes a different why. Why should I delete?
Why should I delete?
Not why should I buy?
But at least the why comes.
That's a good answer. A very good answer you give. I think now you'll also be happy after listening to this conversation and this why wala thing later on. Okay, let's come to the final bit, which is the rapid fire. All right. 1 minute. All right. So you're ready? Be rapid, be quick. Okay.
That's right.
All right. First question: what is the one thing you would leave all this behind for? If you have to leave your entire thing, whether it's your work or your personal life or whatever, you have to leave this behind and you just want to
I'll leave it for a home in the mountains. कोई बस वो सेटअप करके दे दे, बोल दे कि तुमको लाइफ में कभी काम नहीं करना है, पर वो पहाड़ पे होना चाहिए. हाँ.
Okay. मतलब that's your dream.
हाँ, like बस हाँ.
सोच लिया.
और विंटर्स में बीच पे, ऐसा नहीं है. हाँ.
दो जगह
चाहिए.
Makes sense. मैंने एक्चुअली पूछा था when I had gone to अपना हिमाचल प्रदेश.
They don't let you buy land, ना. It is only for the residents.
नहीं, you are allowed. Where was I? Which is this place?
उत्तराखंड में they are allowed. Himachal they don't give you land.
They don't?
Unless you're from the state, you can't buy it.
So they were telling me कि आपको खरीदना है बताओ, हम खरीदवा के देंगे.
I mean, you'll have to buy it in some local's name and all. There's
Some
all
local's
kinds.
name
कुछ
and
तो भी है वहाँ पे.
Yeah, the partnership or something.
There's a workaround to everything, but in terms of freehold title, unless you are from Himachal, they don't let you buy it.
Okay. All right. Next question. When would you want to retire? Post 60 or never?
What do you define as retirement?
Not professionally working.
So I can't
In a
invest.
professional term, not professionally working. ऐसा काफी लोग को होता है. मैं रिटायर नहीं होऊंगा.
See, the problem
किसी
is.
लोग को होता है मेरे को 60 के बाद I want to.
See, the challenge is you're talking to somebody who took VRS at 26.
हाँ.
So I actually did it long before anybody ever imagined that they would retire. So how do you want me to answer that question?
When will be your second retirement?
I think जब मन हुआ.
Okay. So ऐसा कोई predetermined ये नहीं है plan.
Hey, I don't have a plan that by this age I will retire or I should have so much money in my bank before I retire. If I decide to retire, I will alter my life plans accordingly.
Okay, makes sense. Third, one red flag in a founder that turns you off as an investment.
Red flag in a founder. Dishonesty.
Okay. Makes sense. Fourth one, the next big sector in startups according to you, which you probably answered, but go on again.
I think it is in some kind of climate tech. It depends whether it's renewables, whether it is alternates to plastic. A lot of these are also going to be regulation driven. So I think that you cannot escape it being the next big sector.
Okay, makes sense. Last question, if you had a chance to ask a founder on date, who would it be?
I haven't met such
Any
a
of your
founder yet.
portfolio companies or any other founders?
I haven't met such a founder yet.
If you were to,
But I have to have met someone.
if you were to,
अरे भाई देखो ऐसा है कि let's just put it like that. आज तक ऐसा founder मुझे मिला नहीं है कि जिसको I would think कि I should meet this person outside of the world.
Not on a date like a romantic date, like a date to even talk just on work or something, like you would ask that person. No one?
No one.
Hypothetically also no one?
No one. I mean, there's no one I think that.
Invested in 10 startups, MA invested in 150, 200.
250 start. 250 start. देखो ऐसा है कि out of these 250 companies, when if we need to chat with anybody, they're always available.
Any other entrepreneur that you would want to ever just go out on a dinner kind of a date? Any other renowned person? कोई तो role model होगा, mentor होगा जिसके साथ बैठ के बात करनी होगी. So I asked this same question last week to another guest, right? And she's a big foodie, so she said I would want to go out with Dipinder Goyal to talk about food conversations. ऐसे ही randomly. कोई भी नहीं. अच्छा, okay. चलो, no problem. Let's wrap it up with my last question. If you were to give an advice to your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
Do it all over again.
Do it all over again and go out on a date with some founder.
No, do the same things
Do
again.
the same things
Have
again.
fun.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks a lot, Shivangi. It was a pleasure having you here and wonderful conversation. I think I learned quite a lot about how to lead your life. Not to take it so seriously. Take it in the flow. Have a flow state of mind. So thanks a lot for at least helping me with that kind of learnings from your experience in life, and I hope our viewers pick up a thing or two for their own life. Thanks a lot, Shivangi. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Devansh. My pleasure.
Thank you.
you.
What's up, guys? Before I sign off, I would love to know whether you really liked this video or not. If you did, click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, click on the notification bell so that whenever our video goes live, you are notified first. This would be a really small task for you, but trust me, this would help us a lot in spreading this knowledge world over and helping people level up their knowledge. Signing off, Devansh Lakhani.